Hi, Alex.
Hi, Stepan. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks everyone for joining. You are the first ones. We'll give maybe a minute or two for everyone so that they can join, and we'll start right away. So wonderful week right before the Thanksgiving. So like the holidays in the air, you can see it. Yeah, so we have more and more people. Good crowd today, actually. I'm surprised. I was thinking everybody is already on vacation.
Nice, nice.
Let's do a short intro while everybody is joining here. So we have Alex on the call. Hi, Alex. Alex is the VP of Security Solutions here at Wallarm. So basically, he's a guy who will help you to run the POC, talk about the deployment, and basically talk about the Kubernetes and the security of APIs. So, hey, Alex, great to have you here.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. And also I'll be doing the demos today in the webinar.
Exactly. A very important thing to do, right? My name is Stepan. I'm one of the co-founders of Wallarm. I'm here on the marketing and product side. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions during the webinar or maybe some questions right after. Either Alex or myself are help to jump on the call and discuss some of the details about the product or technically about the API security. So we're great fans about building the security strategy for the orgs. It can be the modern enterprise, or it can be the Fortune 500 company, or it can be a startup like where you don't even have a security team or a product security team. Happy to talk and maybe streamline the plan for you so that it can jump right away. So feel free to reach out to us. I see more and more people joined. Let's maybe give another 30 seconds. It's kind of foggy in San Francisco today. And you're in San Francisco today as well, Alex, right?
Yeah, this is where I live, and probably most of the days is like that here in San Francisco.
Yeah, I'm in the office of Wallarm. We're in summer, so fog is not usual, but today it's foggy. Today it's foggy. And I don't know what, like 3 minutes, I think we're good to go. Let me share my screen. So the plan for today, everyone, is that we will go through a few slides first. And I'll give you an overview of the platform we have, what kind of use cases we can help you with. Then we'll switch to the product overview, and we'll show you some live demos, like maybe we'll show you a few attacks that the Alex will conduct in the demo environment, and we'll show you how Wallarm can identify and mitigate those things. So the plan is very simple, and feel free to use our chat here or a Q&A panel. It's on the bottom of the Zoom UI to shoot your questions. So happy to address them either at the end of the webinar, or maybe some of them would be right to talk right away. So feel free to shoot them. Don't wait until the very end of the webinar. Let me share the screen here. Do I share it now or I don't?
Not yet.
Oh, yeah, I think so. You can see it now, right?
Yes, we can. Perfect.
Yeah. Let's jump right in. So I don't want to talk a lot about the marketing stuff. Let's make it practical. It's more about the overview, about the features of the product, and then we can just jump right into the demo. But anyway, for those who don't use Wallarm at the moment, who never heard about Wallarm before, Wallarm is the API security solution. And as a matter of fact, we believe that we have the most comprehensive API security solution in the market. We have a lot of companies that are relying on us to protect their microservices, APIs, single page applications, both from the Fortune 500 companies and the evolving startups, like some of the largest startups in the world are using Wallarm right now. The way how we think about the API security is that API security is the new application security. So all the APIs are the support, are the foundation for the modern applications. And the stack today and the stack like 10 years ago is a very different stack. So when we talk with the customers, when we talk with the prospects nowadays, we deal with the REST APIs, we deal with the GraphQL. More and more we talk about the gRPC APIs. If we talk about the infrastructure, it's always cloud native multi-cloud, in many cases, Kubernetes-driven architecture, and we need to deal with all those things. So a lot of times, what do we see in the market is people are saying, hey, I still use this, I don't know, old API gateway or some kind of outdated WAF. And I have a realization that it's not enough. Like in 2021, it's almost 2022. It's something that is still has a feeling that it's something from the old century. So what is the right way to protect APIs nowadays? Like what to do if we need to protect against the OWASP top 10 APIs? What do we need to do when we have this issues with the bots that are running their automated actions against the API endpoints? What do we need to do to protect our, I don't know, traffic that is using
you're not sharing any slides, so it says loading, but it's a black screen.
Oh, okay. Thanks for heads up. Thanks for heads up. I don't know why, but do you see now?
Yeah, it's working now. I can see it.
Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. But anyway, the idea is very simple, right? The stack is very different from what it was before. And what do we see and what do we talk with a lot of customers? They say, hey, we have WAF, but we understand that WAF is not enough. And there is a good reason for that. It's just like they build for very different applications that can cope with the API-specific threats. A lot of customers are saying, hey, we have an API gateway. And we would say, yes, you can do a lot of stuff with the API gateways. You can do rate limiting. You can take care about the authentication and authorization, which is an important piece about the API security. But once again, when we talk about the malicious traffic, API gateway is probably not the right solution to deal with this kind of stuff. And the data is just speaks for itself. 83% of all the web traffic are API calls right now, right? And what Gartner is saying, and Gartner, I think it's a little bit pessimistic here, but they are saying that the attacks on APIs would be the #1 attack factor by 2022, which is like the #1, not even #2 or #3. It will be the #1 attack factor. And having all those API traffic it's just like a blind spot right now for your WAF existing WAF and your API gateways. This is something that you need more visibility. You need some kind of control and ability to mitigate all those attacks. And frankly, the reason why we talk a lot about this is that for last 5 years, we invested a lot of engineering resources to make sure that we can protect everything. It can be REST APIs, SOAP APIs, can be something that is running on top of gRPC or GraphQL. We can be deployed in a variety of the platforms and so on and so forth. So like 5 years of investment of engineering resources to make sure that we can actually come and protect pretty much any infrastructure in your environment. How we see the right approach for the API security is that it is not only about the one piece or another. It should be a holistic approach, and you should have multiple pieces across the whole life cycle of your API. So that we typically talk about a few things: are API discovery, API protection, and API security testing. So API discovery is a very simple thing, right? So you can't protect something you don't know. So we basically help companies to identify all the APIs they have, or even like all the web assets they have, both internal and exposed, that they need to protect and they need to take care. API protection, we also call it API threat prevention, is all about how to mitigate those attacks. And there are a lot of solutions out there on the market. We will say, hey, we will help you to identify the attacks, but you will need something else to block them. Like it's a bit strange to hear when those companies are saying that they are cutting-edge product and they still require a WAF to mitigate those attacks. We just don't think it's the right approach. So in our case, we will provide you both visibility and detection and mitigation as a part of one product. So you don't need anything extra to make sure that it works. And the API security testing is absolutely necessary thing, because it's not only about the attacks, or it's not only about the API inventory. It's all about like how to find the security issues that can be a reason for data breach, that can lead to the security incident, how to make sure that you know about those issues before it's an incident, and how to fix them, how to prioritize your efforts of the incident response. So this is all about there. Let me talk a little bit about the deployment, because the first thing we usually hear from the customers and from the prospects is, how are you guys deployed, right? And it's a separate topic on its own, but The important thing that I want just to say that we support any environment. It can be a multi-cloud environment. It can be a Kubernetes environment. We can be deployed on the edge. We can be deployed within the network. Wallarm can identify the traffic that you have for your exposed APIs. We can analyze the traffic between your microservices. So it's a solution that you can deploy inline, or we can just analyze the copy of the traffic. So all of the options available, and frankly, working with some of the most sophisticated tech companies, they just made us to support all those things, including some fancy one like Service Mesh, Envoy, and some others. Like, just be sure that we can plug it into pretty much everything there. And this is the slide that will just show that we have plenty of the options. It can be a sidecar controller, a sidecar container, or it can be a ingress controller for your Kubernetes environment. If you use different kind of API gateways, in many cases we have modules that can use. If you're running the load balancer or service mesh, we can plug into there. If you're running and in many cases you are running on the AWS, GCP, Azure, there is a variety of the ways how we can deploy there and also tap into the traffic there. So it's available in many. There's a variety of the options, and of course, if you don't want to deploy anything in your infrastructure, there is also a cloud option where you can just route all the traffic and it will take care of everything. The four pieces that we typically talk about the product is protect, respond, test, and discover. So protect piece is all about the real-time mitigation of all your attacks. It can be different kind of API views, API top 10 API, OWASP top 10 API, regular OWASP top 10 if you still have web applications, mitigation against bots, this kind of stuff. And as I mentioned, we support all the API protocols, and can be REST, OAuth, gRPC, GraphQL, WebSockets, binary protocols. We can protect all those things. And the important piece here is that you don't need to tune it. As in case with the regular WAF, we put a lot of efforts to make sure that you will have almost zero false positives, but also will have a very high rate of detecting the attack. So we put a lot of efforts into the accuracy, both on the false positive side, but also on our ability to identify the most sophisticated attacks. The response piece is all about how you will react to those attacks, right? And we will give you full visibility into every single malicious API call that you will have. You can see the chain of the attack and how it's expanded, how it's evolved over the time. We help you to automate your incident response. So we have the module which we call active threat verification. I will show you later in the demo that actually can verify those attacks and see if any of those expose real vulnerabilities. And we of course have different kind of integrations. So we can basically plug into your existing DevOps, SecOps tool chain like SIEM, SOARs, basically tools like OpsGenie or PagerDuty, and just have alerts when it's required. The test piece is all about finding vulnerabilities, like something that is misconfigured, or it can be different kind of vulnerability in your APIs. So we will just help you to automate this process of identifying those API specific issues. And discovery piece is all about how to help you identify assets that you need to care, right? And we will show you the full structure of your APIs reconstructed based on the traffic, like created only on the actual usage by your users. And you can even compare it what you have from your developers. Surprise, surprise, in many cases, there are differences between what you have in production and what you have in the docs. And it's very important just to keep tracking changes and making sure that you don't have any zombie APIs or shadow APIs, as we call them, where there is no clear ownership about the API, but it's still exposed. You know, like how many times we saw this situation when the company is using, let's say, version 3 of the API, but there is still version 2 and even version 1 exposed, and nobody's even taking care of it, and nobody is fixing vulnerabilities there. I think at the point, maybe enough to talk about it, like just on the slides. Let's just show you a few examples of the of how it works in production, let me just dive into the demo. I will first show you a few things, kind of like the concepts of Wallarm and how the UI looks like. And then Alex will show you a few real-time attacks against APIs and how we can help in blocking those things. So, but let me just show this kind of lab environment where we create some of the API attacks. And as any other system, obviously, we have this fancy dashboard. You can see all the malicious traffic, all the real traffic. The important thing that you can have a overview of what are the APIs you have and which of them are attacked, where you have the real incidents, something that you really need to care about. Obviously, we'll show you what are the sources of the attacks, right? Where this malicious traffic is originated, what are the sources, not only by countries, but also by saying that some of those malicious requests are coming from Tor, or maybe from the proxies, or maybe from the data centers. And in many cases, you can have traffic from data centers, especially for the APIs, but for some of the APIs, you don't want actually those APIs to be consumed by the software that is running the data centers, right? So you have the overview of what you have there, but the most interesting part is the details about like what was happening at every specific moment, right? And you can see on the dashboard that we have some malicious traffic. So like on the top of this graph, you can see that you have 4,500 malicious requests. We call them hits. And you can just instantly get the details of what was there, like, right? What were the attacks? You can see like every line here is an attack, right? In many cases, the attack is not only one request. As a matter of fact, most of the attacks consist of multiple requests, in many cases, thousands and hundreds of the malicious requests. So what we try to do is combine them all together to show you a chain of the attack and show you which of those requests were related to each other. And you have full visibility, frankly, of what was there. Let me just take, for example, this attack. And you see, there is one attack, but it's actually 6 malicious requests there. So you have the details on every single of them. You can expand and you can see the full details of what was the payload of this API call. And you can even find the malicious payload. So in this case, it was a simple SQL injection attack. And it's interesting because you can see that it was within the JSON. And this is a very simple case because the JSON, like the payload, malicious payload, is right within the malicious, within the payload of the API call. In many cases, it's not that simple. And there is multiple encoding that is used. Alex will show you a few examples of this. So, and we'll talk about how Wallarm can actually use the cascade of the parsers to automatically identify the structure of API call and apply all the attack detection to every single parameter so we can identify those things. If anybody is currently using some legacy WAFs that are trying to catch up and adding the API security modules, you would ask us, hey, like how it works. Do I really need to upload any API specs into the system so that you can start identify all those things against our JSON, for instance? And you can, by the way, you can filter out all those things that are related only to the REST APIs. And my answer would be, no, you don't need to do anything. So this is the beauty of Wallarm. You don't need to upload any API specs for us to start working. It will start working the moment when we see the traffic, and we will just automatically identify the whole thing by ourselves. We don't need any hints providing from your specs. As a matter of fact, we can use it, but in many cases, like the specs are not required. We will just apply the what we call smart parsing, when we can reconstruct the whole API method. We will represent it internally as a key values storage, and we will apply the attack detection techniques, a variety of those for every parameter, so that we can identify all those attacks there. And as you can see here, you have like full visibility on what is happening. And as a matter of fact, like we not only don't require you to upload the API specs, it's actually exactly opposite situation. So we have this API discovery piece. We already showed it to you and talked about this. So when we actually can show you the full structure of your API, so does it look familiar, by the way? We try to use a lot of the UX of the Swagger, where a lot of developers, a lot of security folks have experience with. So basically, all those methods here are from our dog fooding. So this is basically the traffic. The traffic was analyzed for our own APIs, and we reconstructed the API methods that we have in our system, so that you can basically expand, for instance, the v1/login API method, and you see that there's two parameters, password and username. We show which of those parameters are required. So basically, you see the asterisk here. It means that the parameter is required. We also show you when was the last time we updated it, because this is the ongoing, nonstop process. We constantly learn the structure of your APIs, and we highlight what is different, like what are the changes. So like you can all see here, and we added some cool stuff on top of the Swagger UI. Basically, you can search, you can type in here like login, and you will just have the APIs that have this login word there. So it's basically the full representation. What's cool is that it's not only possible to look for all the APIs, and you can see the post, get parameters, also put, we can identify all those things. As a matter of fact, you can download the open API specs. Just click one button, and I actually downloaded the Swagger. And if you have Swagger, basically, let me just show you. So I downloaded the open API specification. Now I open the real Swagger, and I can just import what I just created with the Wallarm UI. I'm uploading it, and voila, I have this full Swagger in the real Swagger interface of the APIs created on your traffic. And this is very important just to have an understanding of what kind of APIs you have, or why do you have all those versions of APIs exposed. In many cases, during the POCs that we're running with especially the larger orgs, they are looking through all those findings, and they're just amazed. They say, hey, I don't even know what is this API, or I don't know who's the owner of this API, or why is it exposed? And they're just like sometimes freaked out because this API is like heavily used, and nobody really in the security team knows who is the owner of those things, which is super, super helpful. So the discovery piece is something that is very cool during the POC stage, because you can instantly get the overview of what you have. But it's not enough. By saying the discovery, we are not only analyzing the traffic, we also have the, what do we call scanner. It's a module that is sitting in our own infrastructure. And the idea here is that we want to find all the assets that you have exposed. There's a variety of the method we are relying on. And believe me, all the bad guys in the world, they will use the very same methods to identify all the assets that you have. So think of it as a asset management thing. So the idea here is that we will take the domain you will provide to us, and we will give you the full visibility, like what are the domains, what are the subdomains, where are they hosted. So this is our environment for ourselves, for instance, for the Wallarm demo, and you see all the subdomains, all the IP addresses, everything is hosted in the Google Cloud, so you can see this. And during the POC, by the way, there was a lot of surprises when people identify assets that they are, for instance, in some old data centers like this, they will see this, and they are surprised why they still have some assets that are not in their own cloud at the moment. So this is a cool thing, but the cool part here is not only because we provided this visibility, is because you can scan all those assets, including the APIs, externally with a variety of the things. And as you can see, we divided and separated all those things by a CWE. And there are a lot of things like using components with the known vulnerabilities, or credential management kind of issues, or improper access control. So we implemented a lot of those things that we just see are happening for the APIs, for the larger environments with the applications and so forth. And as a result of it, like, we managed to find a lot of things, even for those companies who have a variety of the vulnerability scanners. So they have all those things already, but we still managed to find a lot of extra stuff. And just to give you a few examples, so like for the purpose of this demo yesterday, we spin up a special Redis, which is just exposed. And if you go to the vulnerability page, we can find, okay, it's like identified now because it is exposed and we managed to find it. So what we provide to you in this vulnerabilities page, we show you the details. Hey, this is information disclosure. It was identified by vulnerability scanner, and we give you this request and a response demo. So like this is what you can instantly create in Jira, or send an alert to Opsgenie, or use whatever incident response procedure you have. So we can identify all those things. Getting back a little bit to the events part. So we talk a lot that will provide you your visibility, right? But visibility for pretty much everything. It can be gRPC. By the way, gRPC is a binary protocol. And typically you use protobuf structures to work with this protocol. And once again, we don't require you for those protobuf specs to be uploaded. We will be just able to identify all those things. Same for GraphQL, it just works. So we give you all these details about the attacks we see. But the important piece here is that we're not only providing you visibility, right? Because everybody is attacked. Everybody is attacked all the time. The week before Thanksgiving, the week of Thanksgiving, the week after Thanksgiving, it will be all the same. There will be attacks all over the place. And if it will be just the data about the malicious request, it can be helpful. But we always were thinking, hey, is there any way how we can make a live security operations centers of security engineers for all those like who are live and think about the product security of the applications and APIs they have, like easier, like what we can do? And one of the ideas is very simple, actually. What if we can take all the data, all those attacks that we see in the traffic, I can actually say if any of those are really exposing any vulnerabilities. Like if there are any of those payloads, malicious payloads, that are bad guys are using, that are automated scanners are using, that are bug bounty guys are using, like if there is any chance that those payloads and the attacks are targeting real vulnerabilities. So for that purpose, we implemented what we call active threat verification. You see that there is icons on the right side here. So for every attack, we basically create a test, like API security test, by saying, hey, if you see the attack, can you please create a test and see if this particular API endpoint is vulnerable or not vulnerable to this kind of attack? And the green check mark here means that it's safe. We checked it. So there was a success against this particular API method. We checked it, no attack, safe. And you don't really need to go into the details because most of the attacks are the same, right? XSS, parse reversal, XSS, SQL injection, different API endpoints, different applications in many cases. And we just know they are safe. And we show you, hey, all those things are safe. Don't worry about it. However, there might be a very different situation when we run this test and we actually see, hey, God, there is actually path reversal vulnerability there. So in this situation, we create what we call incident. So you see there is a tab here, 600 attacks versus 5 incidents. So 5 incidents is actually a lot. And the reason why we have this 5 here is because it's a demo environment. Hopefully you will have a few max over the months because this is very serious. What does it mean? If there is an incident, let's say this one, the first one, SQL injection. If there is an incident, it means that we detected the attack against this month parameter within the API method v1 activities. And we check this attack and we see that there is a vulnerability out there. So we took this attack and we created a test for the vulnerability scanner, and the scanner was managed to find the vulnerability. So we can click to the corresponding security issue and you instantly get the details of it. So you see there's SQL injection issue, and there is a list of the related incidents. And you see that we took the initial request, we added the payload like of the scanner automatically, and we just see the response of the API that makes us think that it is actually SQL injection vulnerability. So, and we automatically do this stuff for everything. So as a result, you have this UI here that basically shows you what vulnerabilities we discovered. And believe me, it provides a lot of value. So you, of course, have all this visibility about the attacks here. And you can like do a variety of the incident response procedures by saying, hey, I want to see only attacks against this application. And then I only want to see I don't know, SQL injection attacks. And then I only want to see something that is coming from the VPNs, for instance. So you can run all those things, instantly get the data about the chain of attacks. But when you actually have the data about the possible vulnerabilities that those attacks can create, it's a very, very different story. There is a couple of other things that I want to show, but let me first pass a baton to Alex so that he can maybe run a few attacks and we can just see how the whole thing is working in a live environment. I am stopping to share it here, Alex.
Perfect. Thank you, Stepan. So we're going to go into the terminal. So can you actually allow me to share?
Yeah, give me just a sec. Can you try now?
Let me try again. And it's working. Thank you so much. So let's see. Can you see my terminal?
Yes.
Perfect. So I have 3 demos for you today. One is a REST API attack. The second one, we're using a GraphQL. And the third one, we're going to be doing an attack on a gRPC. The first one is, the idea is I'm exchanging £1,000 into US dollars and I want to try to send the funds into a different account using a SQL injection. So let's run this. So this is how it looks, which is a normal request. As you can see, I'm using authentication header and I'm using certificate to be able to access the API. So the attack is going to come after that. So after you have been authorized and authenticated, that's where the attack is going to go to. I changed £1,000, which is equal to $768, and is going to this account. At this point, there is no problem. It was a normal request and it went through. I got my pounds converted into US dollars and it went to the right account. So now let's try something bad. So in this example, I set up union select into a different account. So if you're not using any SQL purification libraries, if you're not looking for single quotes or double quotes and you have a malicious payload, you can insert a union select statement and actually send the funds to different account. The good news is with Wallarm, this request got denied. So we do not use reject. We use a library called lib detection, which is open source. You can go and check it out in our GitHub. And we use techniques of grammar and context to be able to stop these attacks. So now let's go to the terminal to see what I have. Now I have a brand new event that just happened, which is the attack I just did on my REST API. You can see the endpoint Forex rates version 2, and you can see the payload I just sent, the union at the different account. I can see the source IP, the blocking code, and also I'm able to see the full payload of the attack. This is all the information I need to be able to find the source IP and who did it. Well, that was REST. So now let's move into a GraphQL endpoint. In this example, I have a user database file, and I'm trying to get the IDs of the users. In the best case scenario, I just allowed to get a single ID of a user. But in this demo, I want to attack the GraphQL endpoint. I want to try to get all the IDs of all the users. So let's try with that. So as you can see here, this is a GraphQL request, a normal request. I'm just trying to get the ID of Alex at test.com. The ID of user is 4. Nothing bad there. So now I'm going to do another type of request, but in this case, I'm going to do a SQL injection or 1 equal 1. So if you have a GraphQL endpoint that is in front of a SQL, classic SQL form, this will translate into a SQL statement, and this will actually show all the users. The good news, Wallarm again was able to detect this attack and stop it. So this attack never made it to your backend. It never made it to your SQL database. Now, if we go back to the UI, I should be able to see now we have a different protocol, which in this case is GraphQL. It just happened now. And you can see again the payload I tried to use, the full GraphQL query that contained that malicious payload, and of course, header information and source. And you can see the code again, 403 has been declined. Now, I'm going to try to get, in this case, a specific user. A root user is usually, ID 1. So in this case, another injection using select 1 in my GraphQL query declined again. It never made it to our backend. So without having any syntax validation in fields, without having any type of SQL purification, Wallarm will identify using lib detection all these attacks and stop them from happening. Okay, on our last test is the gRPC protocol. Here I'm sending messages over gRPC. As you know, the gRPC can send updates back from it's a bidirectional communication. You can send updates from the server back to the client. So let's start with that. So I'm sending a simple message, hello, I am a cat. What the server is going to send back is the mirror image of that text. That's why it looks weird. So you put hello, I'm a cat in front of a mirror. That's exactly what you get. This is my payload, nothing wrong there. Now, what I want to do right now, I want to add a base64 encoding to that specific message. Hello, I'm a cat. Now in base64, this is equivalent. I get a response back. gRPC mirror the job, it send it back. Now let's do doing the bad things right now. So at this point, I'm trying to get your password database doing that message. So cat etc shadow, that should return or probably get back my password. At this point, as you can see, explain text has already been stopped by Wallarm because they're able to see that as a remote code execution. I click again. I'm trying now to encode this in base64. Same attack, cat etc shadow, now base64 encoded. And even if it's encoded, Wallarm is going to take it on the fly and be able to decode the content and still see the content and stop it, as you can see it here. Now, if I go into my console, you see now the last protocol, we started with GraphQL, REST, and now you see gRPC also supported by Wallarm. We're able to see the remote code execution and path traversal that I'm trying to do here. Perfect. Hope you enjoyed it. This is the end of my demo. Stepan, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. That was super insightful. It's always good to have a console part during every demo, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
There's no demo without CLI.
Yeah, we'll usually use CLI or maybe some other tooling just to show you a few use cases. Let me also screen share a few extra things here. Share screen. So I'm just reading the chat here. Somebody was asking, first of all, somebody was asking about the CVE and why we show this generic SQL injection here. So the answer here is that if we identify anything that is matched or matching to the known CVE, we will show you the number of CVE here. Like let's say it's a GitLab kind of for a recent vulnerability, and we identify this payload. We have a special team that actually keep up the database of those CVEs and the payloads that are matching to those CVEs. So we will show you this CVE, and you actually will be able even to look for it. So you see there is a full list of all those CVEs. And there is a variety of the things that you can just look for all those things. But in this particular case, it was a basically general SQL injection, which, as Alex said, we can identify with a variety of the ways. So we have multiple attack detection techniques to make it super accurate. One of them is called lib detection. It's open source, and it doesn't use any payload, any signatures at all. So like it just use the grammar analysis, and by analyzing the grammar, we can say it's a generic SQL injection. So that's why we have this generic SQL injection here. Another question was about the application DDoS. Let me actually show you this. So we have a very powerful part of the system, which we call triggers. So basically, you can set up any rule, any reaction of what is happening with your traffic at the moment. And you can create any condition by saying, hey, I want to, if there is this kind of attacks that are coming during, let's say, hour, and it is coming against some of my application, let's say it's Tireful API. And it's even maybe is coming from some specific IP or IP addresses subset. And you can then set up the reaction, like what to do with this, right? And there is a variety of things. You can set up different alerts, or you can set up blocking. So like it's, let me just show you a bit different thing. I already just created during this demo, this trigger by saying, hey, if there is a number of requests that are coming from the very same IP address, and there is more than 3 requests per minute that are running against this API method. By the way, you can set up the URL, but you can actually go further and you can add all the other conditions like any specific headers or whatever else. So, and then if we see the situation, we want to consider all those attacks to be, in this case, it will be account takeover, but like, let's say just brute force, and we will blacklist this IP address for some period of time. Let's say it's 15 minutes. You can use this, and let me just show you, because this is created for Tireful application. I can just show you. Let me open it. So this is the Tireful API. Probably see this multiple times. They have user token, I think, yeah, user token. So like we created this trigger to react in the situation when there is a high volume of requests that are coming against this API authentication method. So let me just put here something, and I'm just sending a request. Our application response, so like it's not blocked. I'm sending another one, sending another one, sending another one, another one. And you see, it's actually, let me just upload the page. It is blocked now because like the trigger works, and all of a sudden my IP address is just like in the blacklist, and you can see it. So that with the triggers, you can do a variety of the things. So you have a very granular control of what you need to do. And as a matter of fact, you can use also the this part of UI, which we call IP lists. So basically, you can whitelist anything. You can blacklist, and by blacklisting, you can add different kind of sources. Let's say you want to block all the Tor, proxy, VPN, whatever. Like you can specify all those things. You can say, hey, I want to block our Tor to reach out this particular API, and I can just create the blacklist. I don't want VPN traffic against this REST API. So we can just create all those things. Or if you need to have a, this is a usual case for compliance. So like a lot of companies want to block some certain geographies. It is also possible. So I just created this. I don't know if anybody wants to block Switzerland, but let's imagine that there is a case for compliance reason, and I just created this. So you can have this item in the blacklist and just block the whole country. But with the triggers, you can do like crazy amount of cool stuff. And as a reaction, like as a action, you can not only it's not only possible to do something with the request, right, or with the whitelist or the blacklist. You can also set up different kind of integrations, like with the Slack or PagerDuty or some sort of system like Insight Connect, or with the Seams like Splunk or Sumo Logic, which just basically use the generic webhooks and to do different kind of stuff by automating your incident response workflow, by combining together what Wallarm sees in the traffic with the procedure and the workflow you need to take when some certain situation is identified in your traffic, which is very, very powerful on its own. I think this is a good overview. There's like a lot of things that we can go into the details, and there's like a lot of control and ways how we can configure the system, how we can deploy it. It's a very different story. We just don't want to go into the details there. Let's maybe take a look at the questions you also have.
Stepan, one of the questions is how we can mark false positives. Do you want to show that in the UI?
Yeah. So this is a beautiful, very beautiful part about the system, is that we try to make it super easy from many perspectives to operate with it. First, from the way how you can navigate the data and do some certain things in the UI, but also in the way how we can make sure that you can deploy it and use it right away in the blocking mode. So this is the success criteria for a lot of our POCs, is that if you want to deploy it inline, which is an option, and if you want it in a blocking mode, which is also our recommendation, there is a very high chance we can do it right during the POC. And the reason, like, there are multiple reasons for that. First of all, the system is very accurate. Like, there is less likely you will have a lot of false positives, as in case that you might have with the basic webs, for instance. Secondly, it's very easy to tune the system. So let's say if you go through the attacks, like I'm looking for the attacks, something, let's imagine this one looks unusual to me, and I'm thinking maybe it is a false positive. So I instantly get the details about that, and you actually can see the details about the attack. And if you think it is a false positive, you just say, hey, I want to report this attack as a false positive. And it will just help to tune the system automatically. You don't need to create any specific rule. You can create a specific rule, by the way, if you want to, like by saying, hey, I want to basically say that this is a false positive. But in many cases, it's enough just to report it as a false positive. And the reason for that is that we know a lot about your applications. Like, as you can see, we provide you a lot of data about your applications, and knowledge about how your apps works just allows us to tune those security rules automatically. As a result, you will have a very small level of the false positive rates. Another thing, by the way, speaking of the false positives, we have this interesting feature which we call known attacks and other attacks. If you're looking for the known attacks, it would be everything that is very typical that we see across our customers. It can be the attacks that are using CVEs, that are something that we already saw. And in many cases, those are real attacks. And it's very unlikely that any of those are false positives. But if you're looking for other attacks, so those are quite unique attacks, unique in a way that we don't typically see them. Let's say this kind of XML, XXC kind of attack. And it's cool because, first of all, it can be some very unique attacks against your APIs, and you need to pay attention to them. But secondly, it can be, there is a chance that some of them are false positives, and there is just a very easy way to not look across like thousands of attacks, just to explore maybe 50 of them and find if there are any false positive rates. So like, once again, if you within the unknown attacks, unusual attacks, unique attacks, you see something and you think there is a false positive, you just click one button, report attack as a false positive, and it will just tune the system, which is great. And by the way, it's not a black box. You can go to the rules and you can see what the system created. You can tune all those things. But the idea behind the whole thing is how to make sure that we actually make the life easier for you. Alex, were there any other questions?
Plenty of questions. So one of the questions, which is great. So one of the questions I'm reading from the chat, why does the CVE field state generic as SQL is due to the dummy demo data?
Yeah. That one I already answered before when we've been back to the UI. But the idea here is that basically, if we see that there is typical SQL injection, we just show a generic SQLi. If we see that there is a SQL injection payload that we know matches with the known CVE, we will just show the CVE number here. And in the tags, if you want, you can actually look for some specific CVEs. And there is plenty of them. We can just like identify, show you.
Perfect. The other one is can we trigger a notification on blacklist or a gray list?
Trigger a notification.
Like, let's say there is an IP or certain IPs has been set, they have been added to a gray list or blacklist.
Oh yeah, that's very easy. So like once again, you just go to the triggers. You create a trigger by saying, hey, there's something that I want to know, and then you just set up the integration in Slack or in PagerDuty, and you will get an alert when something is happening. Some AP addresses are added into the blacklist. So like it's all automated with the triggers. So you can basically do it anytime with all those integrations.
Perfect, thank you. And the other question is, can we send the data, the events to SIEM like Splunk or Elasticsearch?
Yeah, exactly. So as I've said, we have all those integrations available. So some of them are like out of the box, so Splunk, for instance, or Sumo Logic. You don't like it's very easy just to set up. Just go to the integration page. You will need to set up a few fields. They are usually provided by the SIEM provider or SOAR provider, and that's easy. But we also have the very universal way of integration with the webhooks. So we have a whole set of instructions how we can use the webhooks to tap into pretty much any system using some other open source tools, which is great. But also all the data that you see in the UI, it's available over the API, right? So I'm showing you now the Swagger, which is like our own Swagger. Everybody can go there and take a look like what kind of data then they just fetch. And you can get all the data from our system and use it any way you want to. But if you have a specific question on the integration, let's talk, because we pretty much implemented all the integrations that we require for our customers, because this is a very important piece for the whole idea that it should be part of your workflow, not yet another dashboard.
Perfect, thank you. There is one more question that came up is, can we filter the events based on criteria? Can you just show how we can filter by attack, by date, and by application? Probably you
Oh yeah, that's, there are two ways. So first of all, we have a very, very powerful search here. So basically you can type whatever you want to have, like to find, like I want to see all the attacks for last 30 days, for instance. And you can just like get the whole thing here. But you also, and there's the whole set of the modifiers of the search engine that you can use. By the way, all the docs are available. The product is not hidden by the sales team, so you can just go and sign up and try it out in your environment. It's all available, and you can look through the docs to see what are the capabilities of the system. So this is the article on how we can search. And as you can see, like you can use the variety of the things. But another way to filter all the events, like to navigate all those attacks, is to use this filter. So basically you can say, hey, I want to see incidents, and I want to see all the attacks, and I want to see only SQL injection and remote code execution, for instance, against this application. And you just run the search query. So unfortunately, I didn't pick the one that will get any attacks, but let's just get incidents for any application, and you just see this. And by the way, like if there's something happening now, which is the case for a lot of our applications and a lot of customers out there, you just see this, right? Like 8 attacks are happening right away. It's a kind of streaming mode that we provide, because you can in real time see what is happening right now, like what are the attacks, what are the payloads I used, and it's kind of like streaming mode of what is like real-time data.
Yeah, perfect. Something I'd like to mention too, all these events you see on the screen are available to you, so you can export that into, for example, Splunk, and do a more advanced search with those tools, Elasticsearch or Splunk, for example.
Yeah, there is a question, what is the difference between, say, blocking and blocking? So this is a great question. There is a way how you can set up the way to operate the system. So if it's deployed inline, is great, because in this case, we have an option to mitigate the attacks. So in this case, if we say that there is something malicious in the content of the API call or in the behavior of the API, we can block it in real time on the Kubernetes ingress controller, for instance. And there are different ways of system to operate. So the blocking mode is very simple, right? It will just block everything that we consider to be malicious. Safe blocking is a great option to make sure that you block the malicious traffic, but you don't want to be very aggressive. So in this case, we will have a list of all the IP addresses that were involved into the different kind of attacks. And for every IP address, we will have a count. Basically, if we know that this IP address was involved into the 5 malicious requests, we will add it to the so-called gray list. And we will start blocking all those requests, that all those attacks from the IP addresses in the gray list, only if they have malicious payload inside. And if they don't have any malicious payload, they will be able to reach out the application. So this is actually a very cool way to run the system in the blocking mode from the day one, because in many cases it's safe. It can tolerate some of the false positives, yet it provides you really real mitigation. So happy to show you during the POC. And another thing that I see, the question here is, I'd be interested in seeing a demo. So we're happy, like everyone, feel free to reach out to us. Request@wallarm.com, happy to show you demos. Somebody is asking about the Dast components of something that can be deployed into the CI/CD pipeline. We have a special module which we called FAST, Framework for Application Security Testing. So the idea there is that you can automate security testing right within the CI/CD pipelines. This was just not the purpose of this demo, so we skipped this one. But if you want to know more, feel reached out to us, and we can talk about that as well. And do you have any best practices how to operate Wallarm events daily? So it really depends on your use case and what you consider to be dangerous situation, like about your incident response procedures. But when we use the product for ourselves, we just will give you one tip from our own practice, because we use this product for protecting our own assets. So some of the things that I like to do is to use this known attacks versus other attacks. So for the other attacks, it always have something unusual, right? And there are some new payloads, and we can identify some new exploits because of it. Or it may be false positive, a very rare situation, but it may be. So one of my recommendation would to go to the events page and start exploring which of the attacks are considered to be not known attacks, like pick here other attacks, and that would be the number one thing to do every day. So this is the recommendation. But overall, we have an article about like what are the best practices of using Wallarm, and that would include the working with the events. So happy to please reach out and we'll share with you. So there are some other tips that would be helpful in your day-to-day life as a Wallarm customer. Somebody's asking about the partnership for referrals and channel sales. This is a question from Steve. Steve, also feel free to reach out us at request@wallarm.com, and we'll happy to connect you with the partnership team here at Wallarm.
Yeah, I sent you a couple of emails where you can reach out to us. Happy to help you guys and show you more on Wallarm. I
think we are running out of time and also running out of questions, right? So that was
timing.
awesome experience, guys. Thanks for all your questions. Like, and help. Thanks for making it interactive. It's always better to answer questions and show you something that you want to see other than just talking to you. Feel free to reach out to us if you want to have a more dedicated demo on some particular parts of the product. And always happy to jump on the call. And a happy Thanksgiving to everyone who celebrate. Thank you, Alex, for
Happy Thanksgiving. Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, guys.